A storm track shifting south and multiple powerful systems likely over the next 10 days. Welcome in, everybody. Hopefully, we're having an all right Wednesday. And what a crazy pattern it is out there that we need to talk about with nor'easter potential, ongoing heavy snow. We had crazy thunder sleet this morning. We have severe weather potential on the way. Just a ton to break down in today's video as 2025 continues to kind of pull another trick out from under its sleeve. And I don't think this weekend and into next week will be any different. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell for the latest notifications. Comment, let me know where you're watching from and how much snow you saw yesterday or how much snow you're seeing now. Or if you're just seeing good old-fashioned rain or ice, let me know as well. As we continue to kind of compare what the models suggested would happen, kind of compared to reality. Always helpful to do that. With that said, though, folks, let's go ahead and dive right on into it because a lot to discuss in today's video. Now, what you see here, this is ongoing radar when you can see that next big storm getting its act together in the Central Plains. We've got heavy snow from Des Moines back down into Topeka, Kansas City. We'll go ahead and zoom in on some areas here out into the plains. Just a snowy, icy mess. And you see all this heavy precip back down near Oklahoma. I mean, we had some crazy thunder sleet this morning. It was coming down heavy, thunder, lightning, and ice falling from the sky. Not hail, but again, more of a wintry type of ice out of that one. Very interesting stuff and just not a super common thing to see, and just goes to show how dynamic of a system this is today. And you think all the snow's crazy. Well, look off to the south. We've got heavy rain and a severe weather threat this afternoon back down into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, where there's a tornado threat as we go throughout the day today. So we've got tornado threat. We've got crazy sleet, ice, snow. Yeah, we're doing it all out there. And this is not the only storm over the next 10 days that's going to have that sort of dynamic nature to it this weekend. Another big storm with an even higher severe weather threat going to be knocking on the doorstep. Now, further east, still trying to get through that snow and ice from yesterday. Another round of frozen precip into northern North Carolina. The southern half of Virginia seeing some ice this morning, just causing a travel nightmare for you folks. So obviously, take it easy, and if you don't have to travel, just don't. That'll make your life easier. That'll make first responders' lives easier. Just, again, don't go anywhere if you don't have to, if you're kind of experiencing this very wintry-like weather. Now, due to the craziness happening out there, our current alerts map is definitely full. And obviously, you can see all the colors here, but there's a three-part story that I want to mention just out of this map. I'm going to circle a couple of areas. Here's one area. I'll label that area 1. Here's another area. We'll label this area 2. And then here's another area out west. We'll label area 3. So we've got 3 separate major storms on the map just with our alerts. Area 1, that's the big storm from yesterday plus the ice that's going on now. Area 2, that's our new winter storm cranking up through the plains as we speak. And eventually we'll work through the northeast. And you can kind of count this flooding threat down south with area 2 if you want. And then area 3, another big storm going to move ashore the west coast tomorrow. That one going to bring another big chance for high impact weather in the east by this weekend. And then area 4 comes about a week from now, which will kind of dive out of Canada and also once again cause active weather. So just crazy stuff happening out there, and no rest for the weary at all in this February, or really just in 2025 in general. I'll tell you, January was crazy, and February, sure enough, is continuing that trend for many of us. And I think a big question is, well, Gerald, why is it so crazy? What is happening here? Well, it's just good old-fashioned meridional flow in the jet stream, and we have 2 types of flow out there. We have zonal flow, and an example of that, I guess, kind of would be up here into northern Canada. You see how the jet is relatively even and just kind of west to east. You get down into North America, further south, though, into the United States, and check out how we've got this massive dip. And then kind of ridging in one area. So it's just very active. Big trough here, big ridge here. That's that meridional flow, and that sets up a pattern for big dumps of cold air, big pushes of kind of warmer air from the south. And in between, that's where the storms like to kind of get their act together. And that's exactly what's happening right here in between these areas over Missouri, Kansas. We've got low pressure developing, and that's what's bringing all of that active weather today. And spoiler alert, it's not going anywhere. This is tomorrow morning. We'll move all the way through the weekend. You see another big kind of battle between the jet stream here. You've got blue digging south. You've got red pushing north. And then next week, it's just more of the same as this very active jet stream and this negative NAO, as we call it, really begins to take hold of much of the lower 48. Now, let's go ahead and break down the ongoing storm system and kind of a two-parter here. Again, we've got the leftovers from yesterday, plus the actual main entree, if you will, from today getting going out into the plains. Let's give you the latest. So this is about what we're seeing right now this morning, basically what I showed you on radar imagery. Now, as we go through this afternoon, a couple things to note. I'll pause it here at about 3 p.m. Again, do not sleep on the severe weather threat today. We've got a 5% chance of tornadoes within a 25-mile radius. That's pretty high compared to normal down here into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Have a way to get watches and warnings. I know everyone's talking about snow, and even myself, most of this video is going to be kind of geared towards the snowy side of things, but do not sleep on the severe weather threat today. Same thing goes for this weekend, and we'll talk about that one a little more in depth. But you just kind of see this area of this intense convection down here and some of these little baby, almost single cellular little cells popping out of the Gulf and moving northward. Need to watch that, need to be prepared for it. Now, further to the north, going to be a snowy threat this afternoon in Chicago, Milwaukee, up through much of Michigan. Now, the models have come down a little bit in totals. We're kind of running into a little bit of dry air in the mid-levels, right in that dendritic growth zone, as we call it, that area that the snow kind of forms above our head. Some dry air getting injected in there. That's going to bring totals down a little bit compared to yesterday morning. And if you were on our live last night, you kind of saw that as well. So what was once maybe 8, 9, 10-inch totals, now more like 5, 6, 7-inch totals. So still a good winter storm. And you can see that'll continue here through the evening. And then we get into the overnight tonight around 7, 8 p.m. I think we're going to see, again, a good band of snow up here into Michigan, northern Indiana, Chicago area, going to get some snow out of this. Kind of a skinny regime of ice here into northeastern Ohio, back down into Indiana. The St. Louis area going to run into some ice. Also going to see some ice into the mid-Atlantic through the apps here, same areas that have been dealing with winter weather, going to continue into the mountains of Virginia. We're going to see some light snow and ice kind of mixing this evening in the northeast, and we'll keep on moving it ahead. Very heavy shield of rain as well. Don't let that surprise you. Could see a flooding threat today. If you go back to our current alerts map, all those green boxes, those are flood watches for this ongoing storm system, and it just keeps on moving north and east. A nasty night in the northeast overnight tonight. The coastline, mainly rain. The interior, kind of snow, ice mixing. Going to be more of an all-snow event into northern Maine, into northern Vermont, New Hampshire. Further south you go, though, that's where we could see a pretty good little ice event here from 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice. Would not surprise me. Into portions of the northeast, and then a feisty little squall line tomorrow morning moving through the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, and then by tomorrow afternoon and this tomorrow evening, we kind of cool down a little bit, cooler air rushes in, and we got some lake effect snow, but overall, most of us get back to a bit more of a quiet pattern for our Friday and enjoy it, because that goes downhill once again come Saturday. All right, let's talk totals here. What about ice? Well, like I said, kind of a skinny band of ice here. 1/4 of an inch, not out of the question, especially into northeastern Ohio. Watching you folks up that way, models have been pretty consistent here that we could see pretty significant icing impacts. This would make travel nearly impossible and even bring a couple scattered power outages. Not out of the question. Lower end ice back down towards St. Louis, more of a glaze to 1/10 of an inch. And then you go north of Indy, about the same, but definitely this corridor from, we'll say, Indianapolis up through northeast Ohio and the southern suburbs of Detroit. Going to run into a bit of an icy mess during the day today and into the overnight tonight. Now, what about snowfall totals here? Like I said, a little bit lower than maybe it looked like yesterday, but still a good storm, especially for areas in and around Milwaukee. I think a good 6, 7, 8 inches of snow Chicago and kind of surrounding areas of northern Illinois, looking like more of a 3 to 5 inch storm now compared to that 5 to 8 inch storm it looked like yesterday. Again, still going to be a snowstorm, just maybe a little bit less than we thought. And still looks good up into Michigan, right around 1/2 foot for most folks there. Detroit going to be right on that thin line of ice and snow, so it could be, we'll say, maybe 2 to 4 inches in the Detroit area. But you definitely see that sharp gradient between the ice and the snow. Heavy snow to the north of that gradient, and kind of an icy mix to the south. So that's the latest on the ongoing storm out in this part of the country. Now we'll move it east here. This is where we could see more of an ice threat into the mid-Atlantic. Cannot catch a break in here, but the mountains of Virginia, all the ice and snow you got yesterday, add some to it today, even all the way up into the Alleghenies. We could see widespread 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice in all of those pink regions that you see on the map here. Going to cause problems even down into the northern mountains of North Carolina, in and around Boone. Going to see some ice. And then we kind of move this further into the northeast. We could also see some ice up into this region. And I think, honestly, this might be a little underdone. I think kind of this more lightly shaded area could be a little bit closer to 1/10 of an inch than a glaze. that is shown here, but you get the region nonetheless that'll have the highest chance of seeing some of those icy impacts. And snow also going to be a concern in the northeast, just for areas further into the interior. Check out these totals up into Maine, going for half a foot to a foot up into northern Maine towards the Canadian border, into the down east areas, a good 2 to 4 inch event, and then becomes pretty elevation dependent back towards Vermont, New Hampshire, and into the Adirondacks. But you can also see this is snow through the next 2 days. You're going to see some of those lake effect bands set up by tomorrow afternoon. Not much snow out of this for the I-95, but keep an eye open on next week. That's when things could change. And speaking of kind of the future here, yeah, I think this weekend and next week could feature a pretty powerful storm. And I say a powerful storm, really 2 storms. One we're confident in is going to be a pretty big deal this weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And then next week, about 7 days or so from now, confidence increasing in some sort of southern storm system, likely a southern winter storm. The question, though, how strong and exactly for who? And that's what we'll talk about from here on out in the video. All right, so why are we getting this kind of track shift? I've been telling you this shifting south track, or this track that's going to shift further to the south. I mentioned it in yesterday's video. I've been talking about it for a couple of days. Well, here's the reason why. This is our upper level map for Thursday morning. And this is the storm tomorrow. Again, that's kind of cutting inland. That's why we're getting an icy, snowy mess for many folks, but still mainly rain for the coastal regions. It's this big ridge that's kind of worked in over the east. That's kind of helping to push the storm a little bit further west. Now, as we go later on into time, Thursday morning and afternoon, again, here's the next storm that's going to work ashore, starting out west through California, eventually getting into the Rockies by Friday. And then by the time we get to Saturday, notice how this dips southward. We've got a big trough over the Central Plains. That's going to fire up severe weather Saturday afternoon. It's going to fire up winter weather to the north. And what happens with this piece of energy is it kicks our ridge back out over the Atlantic, and that big block of cold air you see in the blue hangs on into the east. It injects a shot of cold air, and as that happens, another storm system follows it up again about a week from now, next Wednesday, Tuesday, into Thursday. I don't know, I kind of flipped the order of the days there. But either way, that time frame from, we'll say, the 18th through the 22nd of February, that general time frame, there is a signal for one or maybe a couple of rounds of winter weather in the east, specifically the south, or the mid-south, that Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas area, potentially into the Carolinas and Virginia. And this has the potential to ride up the coast and become a big nor'easter. And I use the word potential. That's the key word here. Not set in stone, not guaranteed, but something that we are watching. All right, so let's time it out a little bit more for you. You kind of see by Thursday morning here, just an absolute mess, and into Thursday afternoon, working into California, our vorticity map, just going crazy here. We've got plenty of spin out there. That's going to bring snow. It's going to bring coastal rain, gusty winds. It's going to bring it all for you, trust me. And then we moved ahead into time, and here we go by Saturday afternoon. This big trough gets all the way out into the plains, and this is just going to produce a tremendous amount of lift out ahead of it. And unfortunately, also a bit of a jet streak coupled in here. And the core of that divergent zone of the jet streak right over the most unstable part of the map, severe weather, again, I keep mentioning it, gonna be a big problem Saturday afternoon. Do not sleep on it. It's gonna be something that you need to be aware of, and probably even into the overnight of Saturday, right through the heart of Dixie Alley from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, potentially getting into Tennessee, Georgia, Arkansas, all those states. Go ahead and be prepared for severe weather come the weekend. And then this big piece of energy pulls up to the north and kind of gets wrapped up by a big upper level low into Canada. This is a big pocket of cold air. That's going to give the potential to really strengthen whatever storm forms down here as it pulls northward towards the northeast. And still questions on the track. This could cut inland a little bit more and kind of be more of a Canada winter storm. This could phase along the coast and become a pretty big winter storm for the northeast. Still questions to answer, but I think this one going to be one of the stronger low pressures we've seen so far this month, in and around that 980 range, maybe even down towards 970, if this upper level energy around it can really help to kind of create some divergence above it and really deepen that pressure at the surface. That's going to be the key to this weekend. And we'll show it to you. The latest GFS model showing this storm well. Here we go, Thursday and Friday. Big old mess out west into the Rockies, the Sierra Nevadas. then gets into the plains. Here we go. Friday evening, you'll notice some of that energy producing another band of snow in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, Chicago, back into Gary, Indiana. Could see some snow out of that. Still quiet Friday evening for areas further south, but that changes quickly during the overnight. And here we go, Saturday afternoon. Strong low pressure developing right around 1,000 millibars. We've got that severe weather threat into the warm sector down south. We've got a shield of snow to the north. And notice here on the GFS model, we've got snow in Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York City, up into the northeast. We've got ice down into the Shenandoah Valley. And then the storm pulls north, kind of moves that rain snow line again to the north with it on the GFS. We change over to ice into the interior of kind of the northeast. We've still got snow holding on into Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Maine, into the Adirondacks, and then changes to rain back down towards the I-95 into Philly, New Jersey, into New York City. And Sunday morning, a nasty squall line working through the south here. This is going to bring strong gusty winds. It's going to bring some thunder, some lightning, maybe an embedded tornado threat, especially the further south you go down here towards the Gulf come Sunday morning as we get the leftovers of Saturday's severe weather threat. And then the storm continues to crank up Sunday afternoon. I mean, this is a strong storm system, folks. 987 gets down to 984. This would bring the potential for blizzard-like conditions and potentially big ice problems. You get all that wind and you can see this kind of icy colors up into the northeast. Yeah, that's a recipe for power outages, and obviously not something you want to see, but something we need to watch come Sunday afternoon. And then the storm gets out of here, and that sets the stage for our next storm. Now, let's talk about snow really quickly out west. Definitely something I think we're going to get. We'll go ahead and mention it here. Sierra Nevada is going to get absolutely clobbered here by 3, 4, maybe even 5 feet of snow out of this event as it works on through. Even the Rockies of Colorado into Nevada, Utah, up through Yellowstone, going to see a good amount of snow here. So definitely a good time to be a ski lover out here. But just kind of taking a look at some of these values, we're talking 50 inches. Again, over parts of the Sierra Nevadas, just within a 2 or 3 day span. So plenty of snow out of the storm system for sure for our folks out west. And I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, we've still got some uncertainty in the track here. These are the Euro ensembles. I showed you the GFS. We feel confident the storm's going to get strong, again down into the 980s, maybe the 970s, but you see a little bit of a split here in the models. Some of the ensemble members kind of cut this inland a little bit more. Others have it a little bit closer along the coast, and that's a big difference. A coastal storm would bring more people into the snow and ice event. A cutter inland would bring more of maybe Canada and the Midwest into a snow event, and then have more of an icy concern into the Northeast. Either way, though, strong storm. Looks like pretty gusty winds out of this one. And again, that front going to sweep all the way through the East Coast. So everyone's going to get some piece of it, whether that's a wintry side or a more severe weather side. Going to depend on where you're watching from, but will absolutely be a threat. Now, talking about that ice threat for the weekend, here's the freezing rain potential. Highest again into the Alleghenies, up through even portions of the interior Northeast. And notice that freezing rain signal really increases by Sunday afternoon and evening through Massachusetts, southern Vermont, New Hampshire. And if we get that more interior track with the storm, that's going to bring that ice threat further north with it compared to a coastal track, which would bring more snow. But either way, you can see that icy signal there into the Northeast and could even spread back down into the mountains of Virginia, West Virginia, and surrounding areas. Now, what about snow? I do think we're going to get a good amount of snow out of this one as well. You can see that snow signal really beginning into the Midwest, kind of really blossoms here Saturday afternoon and evening, Wisconsin, Michigan, maybe into Chicago, and then works into the Northeast and begins to strengthen. Eastern Canada, Ontario, into Montreal and surrounding areas there, then into Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Good little snow signal here. Also a bit of a signal for the Boston area back down south. Could start as snow, likely changing to ice or rain depending on the track. Again, we'll kind of iron out those details. And then it moves on out of here by Monday and Tuesday and sets the stage for the next storm system. Now, briefly want to show you this. I talked about severe weather. Here's the potential for it. An enhanced risk of day 4, folks. That's kind of a serious deal. That means business. It's not often the Storm Prediction Center pulls the trigger on this, but they're already going basically the highest level that they can issue at this range for Saturday afternoon and evening from Monroe, Jackson, Meridian, back over towards Birmingham into really just much of Dixie Alley. Go ahead and be prepared for severe weather Saturday afternoon and could even become a nocturnal threat as we go through the evening. All right, that gets us to next week, and this is another time frame we're watching for another storm. We'll back it up, our vorticity map. You know I love to use it. Let's pause it right here. This is Monday afternoon. These are the players on the field I'm watching. We've got a little bit of energy up here into the prairies of Canada, and then a stout shortwave trough, just meaning a tiny trough here, swinging through the Pacific Northwest. This is the latest GFS model. We'll time it out here and keep on going ahead. It all moves on through, and we'll pause it again here Wednesday afternoon. A strong energy to the north, diving trough, digging trough, and what happens next on the GFS is these try to work together, and this area to the north, this is our cold air supply. That's what's going to bring the cold air for areas further south compared to the past week or so where we've been seeing more rain. That's bringing temperatures back below freezing for plenty of folks, and then that energy tries to move through the Gulf Coast. And folks, this is a good recipe for some sort of winter weather in the south. Again, we've got kind of low pressure down here. We've got cold air to the north. Here's where high pressure would be, kind of bringing some cold air damming potentially, just cold air in general. And it's a good look for winter weather. Now, on this model, doesn't ride up the coast. Some models do show that, and I'll show you that next. But what does the GFS look like with that system? Well, here we go. Monday into Tuesday here, snow and ice beginning through the Central Plains, getting into Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and then moving eastbound. And we've got an ice winter storm through Virginia, North Carolina trying to get in on the action, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, rain along the I-10 corridor. Not going to see another crazy repeat of January along the Gulf Coast out of this system. But then you get another wave of winter weather, and check it out. This is eerily similar to a 2014 style event where it's kind of round one and then round two right behind it. In fact, if I go back and show you the overnight run of the GFS, that was the morning run. I mean, it really goes crazy here. Here we go, storm developing. We've got round one developing right into this time frame, and then another round right behind it as we continue ahead in time. And shows just an absolute whopper of a winter storm in about 10 days or so from now. So definitely has the potential to be something big. Now the European, a little bit different, has the storm, same time frame, here we go, develops, just doesn't quite crank up as much, but does try to ride up the coast a little bit. So either way, both models have the storm. The question mark now, or the question to answer is how strong is it and who exactly gets the worst of it? Obviously, though, we've got a ways to go. It's about a week out. We still have to get through this crazy weekend storm before we get to next week's storm. Now, I'll throw a bone to all my big snow lovers in the East Coast. Anyone who's wanting a big nor'easter that rides up the coast, well, the Euro AI model is your friend. And I'll tell you, the Euro AI has done pretty good this winter. It's kind of the new kid on the block here, integrating some of that AI technology with our weather models. And it, again, has done very well this winter. Here's what it shows, and you see a lot of green on the map. That obviously makes you think it's raining. Well, not technically. You see this kind of blue line, this 540 line. Anything above that line would likely be snow. Anything below it going to be some sort of ice and or rain. Now, again, this would be right around Wednesday, very early in the morning on Wednesday, moving through the Gulf Coast, gets through the southeast, and then rides up the coast and becomes a big-time classic nor'easter that bombs out, moving up the eastern seaboard, and that would bring blizzard conditions to someone in the Northeast about a week or so from now, if it happens like that. And that's obviously the big caveat there with that one. All right, final thing I'll show you. These are the ensembles. What are the chances this storm even happens for snow? Chance of at least an inch? Well, not bad. And again, the key here I want you to notice is how much further south this is. Highest chances over Oklahoma, Arkansas, the Ozarks, getting into Nashville, North Carolina, Virginia, the Delmarva, and then tries to ride up the coast a little bit. So still, not a weak signal, not a strong signal, kind of in that in-between range, but definitely some sort of storm system lurking in the south about a week from now. Just all the details on it is what we still need to iron out. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for the latest notifications. Great way to stay up to date as we continue tracking this just insane pattern here to kind of not round out winter per se, but we're starting to get towards the end of it, starting to look ahead towards spring, and definitely ending February on a very snowy and cold note through much of the east. Alrighty, folks, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, stay weather aware, have a way to get those watches and warnings today, and I'll see you all next time.